Right, now we're going live. Finally. God, it took me Right, when we're live, guys.
Yep.
Welcome and good evening.
How are we doing?
Live on TikTok as well. We're good. This one I've been looking forward to. You see me okay? Yeah, okay. On the screen, right. This one should be interesting because it's hit your brains about many times over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm about to get a warning for light.
That's why I was ducking off screen to take a draw.
I quit in 2016, so it wasn't good.
Excuse me. Fall asleep.
I've been like that. The pollen count today has been so high, I've been coughing like anything. So, all right, I'll start with. I've got a couple of good, interesting cases that you may know of, or you may not have. But what difference? Am I not being? Are you managing to hear me? Okay.
You're cutting out like every third syllable.
And freezing.
Yeah.
Wasn't he just telling us how hot it was? And here he is freezing.
It's cutting out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't look at me like that, Carl. That's creepy.
Yeah, you're doing that right now. What the? Stay calm and don't get wound up with it.
Yep.
Now can you hear me now?
Yes. Better now.
Right. So it's the TikTok studio that screws it all up. So what I have to do is we'll do this. I'll edit it and then we'll chuck it up. Right. Finally got started. God, my brain don't work at the best of times, but especially in this heat. But it's witchcraft, sorry. Something that you're very knowledgeable about, so we'll let you start, Linda. Maybe start with the difference between Wicca and witchcraft.
Well, you see, with my day job and being a bit of a local historian, I spend my entire life rattling around old buildings, ancient buildings, and ancient history. The difference between Wicca and witchcraft is some of the newborn baby witches might want to take a seat. My mum is older than Wicca. Wicca was invented in the 60s by some American dude. I haven't read up that much on it, but because I deal with a lot of ancient history.
I always thought Wicca was started by Gerald Gardner.
That's one name that has been associated with it, yeah. So, but basically, from what I can gather from the little bit that I've looked at. The little bit that I've looked at, somebody had an idea which is similar to modern Wicca back in the late 1800s. And somebody else came along, added a bit, put it back out and about in the 1920s and 30s. But the one that most people are familiar with now, and the writings that most people are familiar with now, most of it was done late 50s, early 60s. This last century, so 1950s, 1960s. And as I said, my mum is older than Wicca, and because I spend most of my life dealing with ancient history, it's far too young for me.
Now, I was always led from research I'd done about it, because when I was with two elder boys' mum. She was she started out practicing witchcraft, then went to Wicca, and then went to neo-paganism. Yeah, she was a nasty piece of work. But when I looked into it, because I'd considered practicing it myself, Gerald Gardner he was a really weird person. He was a nudist for a start. He'd walk around his town, start bollock naked, and he was an old man then. And
it's like you on weekends.
I thought I recognised you, Joe. But yeah, he was a very strange man, and the most famous one of them, obviously, being Aleister Crowley, and actually offered him the leading role of Order of the Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
So, to be honest, other than that, I can't really remember much else about it. This is like 25, 26 years ago I looked into becoming it.
Crowley is a complicated character.
Yes, he is.
Some of his ideas actually do make sense.
Mm.
It was just how he went about with all the sexual stuff and that. There's no need for that. I mean, a lot of the purists, the ones that are into the proper ancient stuff, will say it is necessary. But again, that was something that was added relatively recently. There was little bits and pieces that hinted towards that in medieval times. Yeah. But a lot of them came away from that because the whole point of it, well, number one, they're healers and helpers and agony aunts and agony uncles, because of course there were men doing it as well. The word witch is not a female word.
No,
it's everybody.
A witch is a witch, whether it's a male, a female, a toaster, or a snowflake.
Yeah,
plenty
of them about nowadays.
Yeah, and it's one of them. Most of the stuff that I get myself involved in is more on the healing side, or in the modern terminology, hedge witch, basically.
Yeah.
I am the random person who you will see collecting herbs and plants from hedgerows and country walks and things like that, because they all have a use in one thing or another.
Yeah.
So, but Crowley, yeah, a lot of his stuff does kind of make sense. It's just the practice of it and adding his own personal twist kind of made it a bit weird, and I think that's ultimately what turned everybody against him.
See, they called him the most evil man alive, but if you look at some of the practices that he would have done, most people just nowadays, it's like common practice. You know, Crowley would have had, I don't know, like, for instance, weird sex or weird sexual positions, and that's just like a common practice nowadays because it's just part of life.
Well, look at the time he was doing this. The time period he was doing this.
Class is really weird. Yeah.
Right. That was the big thing about Crowley. It was the time that he was doing it, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, holy crap, we can't be doing that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And if I remember rightly, you saying a few years back, Linda, Crowley actually owned property along the shores of Loch Ness.
Alaskan House.
That's the one. I couldn't think of the name, but and around that time when he was practicing there, supposedly Nessie sightings had increased.
Supposedly, yeah. The common story is he's opened some kind of portal to communicate with spirits and souls and demons and jinns, whatever label you want to give them, because they're all tantamount to the same thing, really. It's all about intention.
Yeah.
And he left and died before closing the portal.
Yeah. And I also read about him once that he had started doing a summoning of some demons, then went to Egypt and didn't finish off doing the incantation.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the bit that a lot of people think is responsible for the weird, funky energy around the property. So I still haven't gotten there, but one of my friends has recently made friends with the current owners of what's left of the property.
Yeah, because it burned down, didn't it?
Get there.
It burned down, didn't it?
Yeah, it was an arson attack. Some people say it wasn't an arson attack, it was accidental, and it was somebody trying to do something to reenact part of his stuff, but I'm sorry, that's arson.
Yeah, we've got a few people watching, including Colin. He's back again. Welcome, Colin. Anyone that's here, feel free to come and say hi. I have tried. I did try going on TikTok, but it freezes. So what I'll have to do, I'll have to run it through live or something. Now I've found a couple that are potentially interesting. Oh, here we go. I would say bring out a picture of Gardner, Joe, but I don't want to put people off their dinner.
There's Alistair himself.
There we go. Yeah.
And that's what's left of the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That has got so much. I'd love to get my hands on that and live there.
Apparently, it's a Dutch family that own it at the moment, and they've done up part of it. Yeah. I'm not sure if they were keeping it private or if they were going to make some public spaces as well. So, but it's all very much a work in progress because there's so much work needing done because it was abandoned for so long. And then there's been all sorts of stupid vandalism and stuff. And then on top of that, you get the arson attack.
Yeah. So, I'm surprised the Nessie Museum didn't buy it out.
Oh, no, it's not their kind of thing. You see, the weird thing about all this up here.
I can't reach it. It's really getting on my nerves.
The weird thing about all this stuff up here is you have things like the Nessie stuff. You have things like the witches and all the rest. But it's also quite a large Bible-influenced area.
Yeah.
Because it's still a place that's filled with wee places. So there is still quite a large Bible influence. And a lot of people, even the ones that technically don't believe anything, they're still too scared to deal with anything like that because, well, it just doesn't feel like it's right, you know. And, of course, you get all the stereotypes of all the silly wee stories that the devil did this and the devil did that. And yeah.
See, a lot of people don't, because the majority of England is pretty much atheist. You know, America is very, very God related. England is very atheist. But a lot of people don't realise Scotland does have quite a strong religious belief to it.
Yeah, a lot of the Celtic nations still have a strong Christianity thread through them.
Right.
Whether it is a thing that is peculiar to the Celtic peoples, I'm not sure. But you tend to find it Scotland, Ireland, Isle of Man, Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany.
Of course, Cornwall's got the witchcraft museums.
Yeah, exactly.
Several. So I've always wanted to go there. I nearly went there some years back when Heidi was pregnant with CJ, but she'd had such a bad pregnancy, the doctors recommended us not going. So literally the day before, we had to cancel it, which is a shame. So I wanted to, and I've just helped bring up the 3 kids, and then I was working and I had a breakdown and that. I just never got round to going, unfortunately. So I would say bring up a picture of Gerald Gardner for anyone that's watching, but I think because of the images that are posted of him and that are around, they wouldn't really be suitable to post online.
That's what I was thinking from what you said.
Well, if you look it up without posting it, then you'll say.
Well, I've got one here that's not a bad picture.
Oh, he's actually got clothes on in this one, has he?
Oh yeah. He's got it all. It's just a facial shot, kind of like a bust shot.
Oh
Let
yeah,
me
if you share that with us, I'll check it up. Because
let me
most of
say
the
it here real quick.
most pictures of him, he's naked in his garden or
No,
somewhere.
this one is
I've
just
got a friend on Facebook like that, but he's always got his back to the camera.
in this heat, I think it's needed. Oh.
There you go. There's a good picture of Gardner.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. Oh, there is. Yes, I forgot about this one. Yeah. Here's a very strange
crazy.
Man.
He looks like the crazy version of Van Gogh.
Yeah. Well, you imagine most of his pictures, it's him naked in his garden.
Yeah.
And he's a very old man, and even an iron wouldn't sort it out.
Yeah.
It's not a very pleasant sight. But he was a strange man. I personally think, from studying him and all the other stuff, I actually think he was weirder than Aleister Crowley.
Potentially.
A lot stranger.
Looking at the face and reading the face, certainly has the propensity for more evil than Crowley.
Yeah, ironically.
Which is saying something.
Which is ironic, because when Crowley offered him to run Golden Dawn, he refused. He said it was too dark for him. So,
maybe he liked his darkness kept in a cupboard.
Possibly, yeah.
To put it politely, anyway.
Yeah. We'll try and keep this PG, this one.
Yeah.
But if you're talking witchcraft, obviously, because of the area where I live, you've got to bring up Matthew Hopkins.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you, Ains. You probably know more about him than I do.
Well, I'll just check it. I wasn't quite sure distance. Where Matthew Hopkins came from is 23 miles away from where I am. Not a very pleasant person. It's estimated he had 300 he personally killed, or is rumored he may have personally killed 300 people accused of witchcraft. Now, however, a lot of history books put it out that if you was accused of witch, guaranteed you'd be hung, drawn, quartered, and this, that, and the other. 3/4 of people accused of witchcraft were actually released.
Wow.
There was very few that actually got executed. The burnt, Joe's brought a picture up, thank you, Joe. A lot of people believe that there was like the people burnt at the stake for being a witch. There's only 6 recorded of people being burnt at the stake alive. What they tended to do, they tended to strangle them by hand or drown them, and then the body was burnt afterwards.
Right.
Now, history puts it out that people were stuck to the stake screaming for their lives while the flames come up. That didn't tend to happen, although there are some cases in Norwich that are very similar. There's a pub there called the Lollards. It's now a privately owned bikers bar. And where the car park is behind used to be the Lollard pit. It was a 60-foot deep hole that had stakes around the outside of it that they used to burn people. Some were as witches, others were simply if a woman went, no, I'm not doing that. Oh, the devil's got to be in you. There is one recorded story in the history books and records up in Norwich. A woman that was heavily pregnant, due to give birth any day. Her husband came back drunk with 6 of his friends and demanded sex for all of them. She was in the early stages of labour. Her water broke. She refused. So they went to the city leaders. She was put to the stake, and halfway through being burnt alive, she went into labour. They took her off. She gave birth to the baby. It was nailed to a stake next to her while she was laying on the floor half dead. It was thrown down the pit, and she was thrown down the pit still alive on top of the baby.
I'm just not going to say anything because there's one word springing to mind, and it's definitely not PG.
Yeah, but
Right.
I can imagine. Unfortunately, the people who used to previously own the bar there used to let people do investigations, but they're not. It's not a biker gang or anything. It's a group of just like people who go to shows and things, but they don't let people. They haven't let people do investigations there for about 15 odd years.
Yeah.
But people I know that had previously done there, they would get EVPs of screaming people, the sound of fires crackling, and sounds of children screaming.
Wow.
So, yeah, it wasn't pleasant, but it's alleged through witchcraft, accusations of witchcraft and just insurrection in general. There's many as 600 were killed at the Lollards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I find it ironic in the times of Matthew Hopkins, women that were like the wise women or the healers, they'd be accused of being witchcraft, put into the cells, awaiting trial and being tortured. Then if someone got ill, they'd go and ask them for the help until they got better and then start torturing them again afterwards.
Yep. The logic is just so illogical.
Yeah. And it was all done in the name of God.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it really is stupid. I mean, I know one section of the trials up here in Elgin, they would, after they got their first not guilty out of the accused, they would open the floor to Joe Public for them to say whatever evidence they had witnessed and yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that Joe Public said was added to the charge sheet of the accused.
Yeah.
And it's the reasoning for adding it to the charge sheet which shows the ridiculousness of it all.
Something as simple as a chicken not laying an egg in the morning, they could be accused of witchcraft because of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody leaving their other half, it rained too much, it didn't rain enough, chicken pox, measles, anything is your fault once you're accused.
Yep.
But their reason for adding what Joe Public said onto your charge sheet was because it was said out of doors in the sight of God, and they weren't hit by lightning when they said it. Therefore, it's definitely true.
Mm.
These are the educated people back in these times, and this is the stupid stuff they believed.
Yeah.
It's one gigantic comedy of errors. If we didn't have the historical evidence in pretty much every country on the planet, I wouldn't believe it. But we do have, unfortunately, archaeological evidence of all of this practices.
Well, initially, for years, they reckon during the trials, there could have been as many as 5 million accused.
Yeah.
Not necessarily executed, but as many as 5 million accused. Because as you said, it was something simple. You know, if like, it's going to be, the old saying, red sky at night, sunny, like shepherd's delight, it's going to be a nice day. And then they woke up and it was raining. Well, somebody in the village has obviously put a curse on the village.
Well, even reciting that red sky at night, shepherd's delight, could be classed as an incantation, especially back then. So,
which makes me laugh about Christianity and all the other different religions like Buddhism and all this, that, and the other. About witchcraft is wrong and doing spells and incantations is wrong, but a prayer,
you got to say your prayers, yeah.
A prayer is literally an incantation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of aspects of. I'm not so sure about others, but Christianity, there's a lot of aspects in Christianity that is basically based on witchcraft and things that are done.
Your rituals with the smoke and all of that stuff that goes on in the big churches.
Yeah,
all that is ritual, and all of that could be turned around if it wasn't them saying that you're a witch. Could all be construed as witchcraft or spellcasting.
Yeah.
One of the things I mentioned,
body and blood of Christ, for instance. You know, that is
transmogrification.
That's it. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah, which is an incantation as a spell or under paganism.
Right.
Yep.
You know,
one of my favorite things to mention when I'm talking about the witches and the trials.
I ain't
and
got
stuff,
the intelligence to be a witch, Joe.
If witchcraft is so bad and its alleged deities are so bad, why has every cathedral in the UK got a green man in it?
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
At least one. The one I work in has 5, only one of which is still in situ.
See, that's
how many are there at Rosalind?
Yeah,
exactly. I've no been there, but I bet there's a dozen or so in there.
Oh, there's probably a lot more than that.
What makes me laugh is they have the church is supposed to be like all godly and all this, that, and the other. Yet the green man is Bacchus, which is the god of wine and merriment.
I'll give you one even better than that, slightly more modern than the witch trials. The big church in my high street here was only built in 1828.
So not
it has
old,
a sculpture on the top of its clock tower that is modelled after a sculpture dedicated to Dionysus. And it's a great example of the Victorians going, that's pretty, let's copy it and put it on our church. So the biggest, holiest church in Elgin that is not the cathedral has a thing on its roof dedicated to the god of wine, women, song, and something else. Stuck on the top of its clock tower, and everybody thinks it's pretty.
I just looked it up, and there's more than 100 green men in Rosalind.
That makes sense.
Alone.
Yeah, in Rosalind itself, they say there are 100 or so green men in Rosalind.
Yeah, because we've got 5 that are identifiable, but there's a lot of the building been too badly damaged in the time in between. So
you may have a lot more than that in there, that have fallen down or whatever. But I was in Rosalind in 2014 and walked around there quite a bit and saw everything I could see. And I just remember seeing the green man all over the place. I didn't count them, of course, but they were all over the place.
There's also, I can't think of the name of it, he who shall not be named, a former teammate. We was going to go to a location that had a church, and there was a couple that we found within the Suffolk. So obviously I'm in Essex now, but when I was in Suffolk, and a lot of churches had witch sigils on the doorways, supposedly to stop witches that would enter in the building.
Yes, that's how you know the building has been used for a trial, because it's to bind the witch to prevent her from using her powers during the trial.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
No, that's you just confirmed. Cool I was wondered because what I found out about it, because I wanted to go there, but things went tits up anyway. I just found it interesting because what I saw is something to do with it would stop them entering.
Oh.
So
yeah, because you've got like your daisy wheels and your 2Vs together and stuff to stop them entering. When you see them on churches and church buildings, it tends to be to bind them so they can't use their powers during the trial. Because the palace that I've worked in as well has them on both sides, inside and outside, either side of every door and every window and every chimney. So, and it's one of the buildings that was used for the bigger trials that had like 50, 60 people at.
What do you know about the Theban alphabet?
Note, with just using that terminology, if I could see an example, I might have a something.
There's an example.
Well, this is just
it's like the room.
Yeah, the Theban alphabet. Women that did actually practice, men and women that did actually practice witchcraft, so people couldn't see what they were writing, they came up with their own alphabet called the Theban alphabet, and it's known as the witch's alphabet. If you, Joe, because your computer's a lot better than mine, if you have a look on Google and put in Theban alphabet, you should be able to see images of it. What's this one Joe's just posted?
Yeah, that's just a witch mark there.
One of the daisy wheels,
Yeah.
These were what were on the outside of this church.
You don't see many of the daisy wheels up here. They seem to be an English one.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the backwards swastika.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the swastika was a symbol of peace before some idiot commandeered it.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, when I was over, because it was hot and sunny, I'd helped Heidi out doing the garden. She was doing a bit of stuff indoors. So I mowed the lawns for her, and I sat down and done a little bit of research. But one of my boys had decided to pinch my pen, so I've had to write it down in the blue colouring pencil. It was so hot in the car when they brought me back yesterday. The arms of my glasses have actually started to melt, and my glasses no longer fit me. It was so hot. So I may struggle reading this. If I quickly bring this up, because Joe's actually found one. There you go, Linda.
Nice. Oh, right. I see. There's also the symbol for Sagittarius in there.
Yes.
And various others. Ooh, and the end is very similar to the satanic symbol that people see, or they say it's satanic.
Yeah.
With the two circles at the bottom, but the cross has two bars when it's the supposed satanic version.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, I do recognize that, but I can't think of any examples as to where I have seen it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I got it. I got must be 2 years ago now. I got that tattoo done.
That on your hand. What does that say? For a good time, call.
I couldn't remember your number, Joe, so I couldn't finish it off. No, what it was, when I was about 8 or 9 years old. As I've said to you, both of you before, I had quite an abusive childhood. I was abused quite a lot by my father, and I had a spirit come through to me and say, "Live in hell till heaven takes you." And that's what it says.
That's not a good choice.
And that's what it actually says in Theban. Live in hell till heaven takes me. So I've wanted that for a long time. I've wanted it on my hand for a long time, and I thought, oh, do you know what? Sod it, I will get it done. I went and got it done, and actually, that was the least painful tattoo I've ever had. So,
can I just throw something in and play devil's advocate?
Yeah.
You know that how magic and witchcraft is all about intention?
Mm.
Do you maybe think that by putting that on the back of your hand, you're sentenced yourself to a life full of crap?
I've had 49 years of crap.
I know the beginning of it has been crap, but the rest of it doesn't have to be. And perhaps by putting that on, you maybe should have had an idea of a rethink to twist it from the negative back to the positive.
The thing is,
you can't just change a tattoo, though.
Well, since I had that said to me as a child, though, I've always had that as a positive affirmation, because
it's like things are going to get better once you get past all this garbage.
Once again, the intent. If he intends it to be positive.
A lot of what I've went through as a child with the abuse, with the death of 3 children and all the other stuff, a lot of other people would be worm food by now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I don't know. It's probably like a placebo kind of thing. But I felt if I hadn't had the spirit say that to me as a child, I'd have been long gone by now.
Yeah.
The day I was born, my mum had been in labour about 14 hours with me. My father had been sent home. It don't look like he's coming yet. Probably won't be here till morning. Go home. As he was walking through the door, the phone was ringing, and he had to come straight back. And they said, he's got meningitis. You'll be lucky that he'll be here by morning. And here I am almost 52 years later. They guaranteed my mother and father that I'd be dead by morning. And here I am 52 years, or almost 52 years later. So I've had the challenges. And then, like I said, grew up, my mother just vanished one day. I didn't see her for over 20 years. And then when I did find her again, she abandoned me a second time. Plus I had a childhood of abuse from my father. And then the deaths of that. So I think if that spirit hadn't come through and said that to me, on the multiple attempts of suicide I've had throughout my life, and I know that's not a YouTube friendly word, but it's part of my life, it's the truth. I don't think without that spirit saying that sentence to me, I'd still be here. Because to me, that although I don't believe in heaven and hell, that means you can go through crap, but at the end of the day, it's going to end up positive for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So
which is always a good way to look at it.
So to me, it's almost like an incantation.
Yeah.
So, right, but there's one we was talking about briefly in chat, and I believe, if I remember rightly, I honestly can't read it because it's blue, it's really light blue pencil because my kids nicked my pen. But Agnes Sampson, one of the first women in Scotland in the 16th century to be accused of witchcraft because of King James.
Correct. She supposedly caused the spell that caused the storm that he was in going to pick up his wife across the sea.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and that's where the Malleus Maleficarum and all that began.
Hammer of the Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, supposedly.
Oh, we're about to be taught, Joe.
Well, you know, I have that little bit of OCD and I can't stop till I find an answer.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
I found a 1400s version of Malleus Maleficarum.
Ooh.
It's for sale at the moment at £750,000. But
will they take a check?
I'm not buying. But
I'll have 3. Thanks.
It has the original author's name on it, who is a man from Belgium, who happened to be killed. He was killed around, I don't know if it's the exact same time period, but it was somewhere around the time that the Vatican was wiping out the Cathars.
1486.
Yeah.
You saying that, that's one of the things I'd written down.
Yeah,
because apparently
the same all the books that came out in James's name, he didn't write any of them. All of them were written by other people who were hunted down by the religion of the area and time. Two of them was the Vatican, one of them was Henry's men.
Yeah,
and they murdered the dudes and nicked their books. And then put them out with James's name on it, saying that James has written them, and he hadn't.
Out of curiosity, I'm just wondering if James is still, sorry, not James, Colin's still there watching. I did look into that. I ain't even going to attempt to pronounce it. So
Malleus Maleficarum.
I can say it, but I'll probably say it in a rush and balls it up, so I'm going to bother. I looked into that. Apparently, there's 27 other editions of it that were updated. 210,000 people were accused of witchcraft. 10,000 of those were tortured, and 67,000 were killed.
Mm-hmm. That's
all
your
in the name of God.
Yeah. And you know the funny thing, particularly in this area?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are certain things that pointed you out as being a witch. Witch marks being one of them.
Yeah.
In which case, I'd have been dead a long time ago if you have moles and marks.
Yeah.
And the one bit of medieval thought process, which has actually proven to be true in the modern world through DNA research, red hair and green eyes equals Irish. And in medieval times, everybody knew that the Irish spoke to the fairies.
Yes.
Correct.
That means every one of them is a witch. So we hunted them down and killed them. That's why we don't have many people with red hair and green eyes anymore.
That's interesting. But interesting thing to
Mhm.
think about. See, a lot of people would associate red hair with Scotland anyway, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Red hair and blue eyes is Scots DNA. Red hair and green eyes is Irish DNA.
I think a lot of that I blame on Russ Abbott in the 80s, though.
Oh, what an atmosphere. That's going to be stuck in my head now.
Henry Incitatus, 1430 to 1505, Latinized name of Heinrich Kramer.
Yeah.
He papal inquisitor
Oh,
in
Colin,
Austria, that area.
We're enjoying it,
And
Colin.
he's one of those that supposedly wrote it or had a lot to do with it.
And it's the same with demonology and
Right.
the translation of the Bible that's come out in James's name. I mean, you've got it from James's point of view. You've got to think this is a bit weird.
Right.
You've just watched these English people cut your mother's head off and display it to the crowd. And then they're putting the Bible out in English and they want to put your name on it and you're the King of Scotland and this is an English church. Somebody had a plan way back when. So I think somebody had to have had a plan way, way, way back to create the UK. Otherwise, why would they make all these moves to make it look like they were friends with James after executing his mother?
And the King James version is the one that tends to be used nowadays anyway, isn't it? So
it's pretty much the only one a lot of Americans have heard of.
Which is ironic, really, because if anyone owned a Bible in English, if straight away, just one person in the family owned a Bible written in English, the whole family would be executed.
That's why the Oxford teacher who translated it moved to Germany. That's why he moved to Germany. But the Vatican found him, stole his book and gifted it back to Henry as a "can we still be friends" gesture.
There's a book down here in France called Demonomany by Jean Baudin. It was published in 1578. And here in France, they had a lot of witch trials, but it was never a, let me find the word that it was done. An extreme thing here. Like witchcraft was a horrible, nasty thing in UK and Scotland and places like that. Here, it was never an extreme law. In fact, there was no laws against witchcraft here.
Wow.
But what they did do is that there were trials of people doing this and people doing that, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really getting dark in here. But it was, it's better. So, but they had an exceptional crime is what they were calling it. A lot of countries had the exceptional crime of witchcraft, but here in France, it was never done like that. And there were different areas. Like if you were up in the northeast, you had the Parliament of Paris that ran the trials. But if you were in the northwest or the south, it were different groups. You would have Parliament of Paris had nothing to do with it. So here in Carcassonne, they had some witch trials, but that was handled by the Inquisition. In fact, I was reading a story about somebody here in Carcassonne. Where was that?
Well, the Spanish Inquisition, technically, we're still under the Spanish Inquisition because it was never officially ended.
Correct.
So it's the longest thing over 600 years now, is it? Something like that.
And you know what they say.
And no one expects it.
Exactly.
Sorry to jump on that. But the thing is, like, the Inquisition was set up to look for heretics.
Yeah.
Such as the Cathars. This is Cathar region.
I was a way to say that's why they came to you.
Right. So, but this area was owned by Aragon at the time, the Spanish kingdom. So it was there, and the Inquisition came here. In fact, there's an Inquisition museum up in the city, up in the walled city. And they've got the part where you walk through and you see Bernard de Guy and all the stuff going on and read all about it. It's absolutely fascinating. And then the second part of the museum is up around the corner, and that's where they have all the torture implements and all the fun things, So that's just fascinating. But the history,
like the things you got in your bedroom behind you, Joe.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
and they talk about the witchcraft and things like that a bit in the museum, but it was the Cathars and there was another group.
Mm-hmm.
Wilsinians, something I can't remember. I
coming along that lines, yeah.
But yeah, there was another group here, and they were trying to go around and get rid of these people. In fact, they say there's a lot of Cathar castles in the area, but there's really not as many. Some just glommed onto the Cathar for the tourist trade. But there are some, like Lats Tour, the Chateau de... there's a few of them that are Cathar strongholds, and the Cathars were rounded up, taken to the bottom of the hill, and wiped out at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
There's you saying about that, Joe. You saying about France. There was one case I came across, and because I couldn't spell the woman's name, I didn't bother writing it down, and I can't remember what it was. But there was a case in 1687 of a woman executed in France as a witch, and the reason she was executed is her humour was better than her neighbours. She was funnier than her neighbour. So she had
Karens either side of her.
She was funnier than her neighbour, so she got accused and strangled to death as a witch.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, you talk about witchcraft, you got to bring paganism into it in one form or another, because they're similar and different at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you're bringing paganism into it, then you got to bring in the St. Brice Day Massacre.
Right.
For instance. The one day, I don't think it was King Alfred, was it? Was it King? I can't remember what king it was off the top of my head now. But basically, well, they worship demons and they worship devils and their gods and all these multiple gods when there's only one god. They practice magic. And a lot of them would use like magic mushrooms and things, and they felt that the trips that they were on were connecting them to spirits and gods and things and that. So one day the king went, right, that's it, had enough. And in the name of God, they went out murdering women and children.
Mm-hmm.
There was one.
Gauguin? Is that her name?
Possibly.
Peronne.
Possibly.
It's
simply,
the last woman to be executed for witchcraft.
Simply because somebody believed in different gods and that. They went out murdering children and women while the men were out. Most of them were farmers.
That's the history of religion.
I was just going to say that.
Well, back to Matthew Hopkins.
Really?
Matthew Hopkins, he was a sicko. And there was one that I found. I was actually quite interested. I hadn't heard of this, but it was in Sweden in 1667. A woman called Gertrude Svendotter claims to have witnessed a guy claims to know teeth in. It's because my glasses are knackered. I can't really read what I'm doing. A woman called Marette Jensdotter in Sweden in 1667 had got into a physical punch up with a young boy. She beat him, and because of that, the man meant to be stronger and all this, that, and the other. He accused her of being a witch, and that's why he lost the fight. He claims that he witnessed her casting spells. He claims that he saw her walking on water, claiming that she's more powerful than Jesus. And he went to his local priest, who rounded up literally the whole community to go after them. And he started accusing them to have a coven within the town. And they executed them. One of the things that this young girl claims is that her neighbour, Marette Jonsdotter, had covered her body in salve. They'd climbed onto a cow and flown halfway across the world to a completely different country for a meeting where she met the devil, dressed up as a priest, and had sex with him. And that a white angel warned her of upcoming plague if she didn't confess. That a whole village would die of plague if she didn't confess to be a witch. The woman, Marie Jansdotter, the reason she was accused of being a witch is she had a birthmark on the inside of her little finger.
That'll do it.
So even her own brother's sister and mother accused her of being a witch, and that's why she's got the birthmark. And the thing is, she never ever denied being a witch. Even without torture, she admitted to being a practicing witch. So like I said, I've struggled to read that because I haven't got my glasses, but I thought it was an interesting way.
The salve thing, this is going to feel slightly over 18, but I'm trying to make it not over 18.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
There are certain books where you can acquire a recipe for said salve. It involves naturally occurring hallucinogenics and
body fluids.
It's absorbed through the thinnest possible part of the skin.
Yeah.
Which is what they used to use the brooms for, because it's one of the tools that everybody had. And you would put the salve on your broom, and then you would fly your broom.
Helps with the suction. Keep you on the broom.
But yeah, there are certain recipes out there for said salve, but like I say, it's filled with natural hallucinogenics. And most natural hallucinogenics, if you don't know what you're doing, they're gonna kill you anyway. So then they follow the recipes. But the salve was often referred to as flying cream. And it's because you're flying the same way the stoners fly. You're not physically flying. You're just off your head.
But some of the Norse used to do similar, didn't they?
Yeah, the mushrooms. The Norse were very, very partial to the mushrooms. The Inca with smoking what is effectively chocolate powder. It's all naturally occurring stuff. I mean, every drug that man has invented, there is a natural occurrence of it. Your simplest and easiest one is paracetamol. It's willow bark.
There's one I've thought of.
Wild lettuce turned into a tincture. It's natural morphine.
Yeah. And also with the ridiculous claims that are made. Well, I'll tell you two stories from up this way. In town here, there was a 14-year-old girl working in a tavern, which is entirely normal in medieval times, because remember, you're a full-grown adult at 12. A 68-year-old man propositioned her, and she giggled and said, "No, thank you anyway, but no thanks, I've got to get on with my work," and she went off. He was so disheartened from being turned down, he drank to the point where his friend had to take him home in a wheelbarrow. He couldn't perform his husbandly duties for 3 weeks. And the wife got suspicious. Probably more to do with the fact that he was 68 and he'd drunk a skinful, enough to sink the Titanic. But he said it was because he'd been turned down by this lassie. Well, the following day, the wife was on the church doorstep. And 3 days later, that 14-year-old was killed for witchcraft.
Yeah.
And then you get a really, really funny, sad but funny. There's an older lady. Her man died. She's kept the farm going all by herself. So facially, she's probably 30 years older than her years because she's working outdoors in the farm. Her neighbours either side, their farms aren't as successful and they have staff. So they really don't like this old lady. They call her a name one day and she turns round and says something and points at them. But they say they couldn't hear what she said. And then later that day, the one who shouted out the insult was taken with explosive at both ends, shall we say.
Yeah.
And he was allegedly on the point of death after 3 days being bedridden while explosive at both ends. I'm sorry, I'd be burning the bed at that rate. But
I think certain ends of him would have been burning after 3 days.
And then later that day, his friend, the thing that started the explosive was he was stung by a poisoned bee. That's what started the explosive bit. And 3 days later, his friend saw the same bee.
Of course.
Captured it, held it under a bucket for 6 hours until it was forced to transmogrify back into Agnes.
Ugh.
And this is all from their statement to the court. And Agnes was killed for witchcraft. And they two buggers passed the land.
And they say people back then, when they wrote things like the Bible, knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But not being funny, things like that. Like, I can't remember if it was the Greeks or the Romans, but tonsillitis, for instance, they use like some forms of what you call magic to heal people, like herbs and things. But their way of curing tonsillitis was to hang a pair of fox's testicles around your throat.
If you get a bad dose of tonsillitis, it's about the same size of swelling.
But
the mix and match thing, where you do something that's similar to what you got.
Yeah,
I think the only way fox testicle round your throat would cure tonsillitis is because you wouldn't want to open your mouth in case they went in.
But it's like there's even here's one spell that's in 7 of my books. Now I've got, as you can't see from here, but I have 8 bookcases in this room.
Oh,
and they're all ram-packed.
I used to have books like that, and then my ex-wife at the time decided to sell them so she could go for a bit of the other with someone.
Yeah. Well, in at least 7 of the books, there's the same recipe for all of them. You need an oyster shell, some mutton fat, so basically lard, but from a sheep. Some of the very fine green seaweed that almost looks like the rock's been painted.
Right.
When it's wet, it looks like a tiny little lettuce leaf.
Yeah.
You need some of that. You need the shoulder blade of a sheep and a sharp knife. And you put all the other bits except for the shoulder blade and the knife inside the shell with 3 handfuls of seawater and drink it while you stab the shoulder blade of the sheep, and it'll cure epilepsy.
The only thing that's missing there is roast potatoes and gravy.
It's random things like this. I mean, some of them have, like, for example, I've got a book that's got a 14th century recipe for what you would put on the infected battle wounds you have from the battle you had the other day. And it's fantastic for acne.
Hi, Perry.
Because, of course, it's the same thing, really. You're drawing out the poison from the skin.
Oh, you've all the good stuff, Perry, so far. There's a picture I've got up, and I am very familiar with this building because when I left home at 14, I went to live with my first girlfriend because I'd rather be away from what I was going through at home. And that's this place.
Oh, I've forgotten the word. Yeah,
It's the
I know
St.
the place.
The St. Joseph Witch House.
Yeah.
Now, the road there on the left, you used to walk about 500 or 600 yards there as a turning, and I lived there with the girlfriend that I was with at the time. And even so, this is like the 80s. Back then, it had such a ominous vibe when you walk past it. Back then, even though I've been doing investigations all these years now, back then I would, where the benches, I would walk on that side of the road as I came past that building, as it was a lot there. And from what I had to check it because I couldn't quite remember the woman's surname. I remember the first name, but her name was Ursula Kemp in 1582, and she was accused of causing deaths by witchcraft multiple times, and that is the building that she was in. Now, there has been documentaries of a woman that had lived in there and all sorts of weird things that happened.
Yeah, I saw
If
that.
if you watch the documentary, though, to me, it comes across more as postnatal depression rather than it being actual witchcraft.
Mhm.
The reason I bring that one up, because I looked into it, I looked to check into it for this. Essex had more accusations of witchcraft than anywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
Essex had the most accusations.
I know Scotland had the highest death toll per capita
Yeah.
because we had 4,500 killed.
Yeah, it was something like 2 out of every 10 were executed or something, weren't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And in Elgin, here in Elgin, at the time, we had a population of 3,500 to 4,000 people, and we had 300 trials and 40 executions. It's basically, you just kept your head down and got on with what you had to do, because if you said the wrong thing to the wrong person, you were going to get killed. Because the first 20 years of the witchcraft craziness in this area, you can't even call it a trial, because as soon as you get collected to be taken to trial, you know you're going to be dead by sunset.
Yeah.
Until they killed the 84-year-old, and that seemed to turn the locals against the church, so they stopped killing people.
Yeah. There's one, I don't know if Joe's heard of this one, and Linda may have. It's from your end of the country. Scotland actually had their own version of Matthew Hopkins.
Yes, they did.
And he was known as the Bellman.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know about that one?
I've not heard much about him. The more for more local ones, it was the witch pricker that was the deadly one, because the witch prickers just travelled from town to town like the carpetbaggers in the States.
That is one of the witch prickers. That was the Scottish Bellman. Apparently, he's got the highest kill count.
Yeah.
He was paid 30 shillings for everyone that got executed.
Wow.
So he had really good reason to find people guilty and kill them.
Yep. 30 shillings.
That's ridiculous. The one up here was only getting 10 shillings per kill.
Yeah, well, the Bellman, he was getting 30 shillings for every person that got executed. He was a skin pricker. He had a hidden device in his sleeve that he'd prick people with. Eventually, he was executed. I didn't find out why he was executed. But yeah, 30 shillings execution.
Ours was done as part of your trial. For Elgin anyway, it was done as part of your trial. It was part of the display for the public. So you're strung up, pulled up onto your tippy toes, naked, and this dude is pricking every mark and mole you have on your body with his needles, and of course he uses the retractable needle to find the one that doesn't bleed. But our witch pricker was executed as well 3 months after the last death. In fact, can I just tell you how we did our trials in Elgin?
Yeah,
Sure.
while you're doing that, because I know 30 shillings is a lot. I just want to have a look and see what conversion.
Translated, yeah. So, in Elgin, once you were accused of witchcraft, you would have a horse and cart turn up at your door with ropes and chains hanging off of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to ride on the cart. You're tied to the back and expected to keep up with the horse. It doesn't matter if your house is 5 yards from where the trial is held, or if it's 3 miles, you're expected to keep up with the horse. The last lady we did this to was 84 years old and lived 2.7 miles away from the trial site. By the time she got to trial, she had 2 broken legs and was road rash from the knees down. They pull you up, excuse me, at the trial site, which is in front of the closed down Catholic church. And they took it as a way of the Protestants proving to the Catholics, oh, you couldn't sort out the witches, so we're doing it for you. And they present your charges to you. You gave your first not guilty. They open the floor to Joe Public. Joe Public's just gonna make stuff up. They're here for the family day out of watching somebody get tortured. Then you're dragged to a pool about half a mile away from where you started. And ducking stools cost money, so we didn't have one.
There's a ducking pond not that far from me, actually.
Yeah.
But it's now sat in somebody's back garden, so you can't do anything near it.
Ours was completely dried up and been built over. So this was some of the local history.
So I'm just going to get a glass of water.
Public displays of alleged local history will tell you it was a medieval well where we tested the witches. It wasn't. It was a loop of the river that was cut off when the river changed its course back in the 900s. It became a self-maintaining lake. The ducking stools cost money, so we didn't have one. We take your right thumb and tie it to your left big toe and vice versa and throw you in the water. If you drown, oh, bless, you're innocent. At least you get to go to heaven. If you float, you're in trouble. They'll drag you out of the pond with whatever body part is nearest to them. It doesn't matter if your face is in the mud because you're going to be dead by sunset. Drag you back to the gates of the cathedral where there's a hangman's scaffold being erected, not with a hangman's noose, with a great big old fisherman's knot, which is positioned just there. And you can hear the effect it has, right? They pull you up like you're on point in ballet class on your tippy toes, and they'll read your charges off you to you again, tell you what you're supposed to have done. They're not asking if you're guilty or not guilty because they come at you with the water rejected you. This proves you are not a child of God. And then they pull you up 6 foot off the ground. Now, because the knot's here, that's pulling the knot away from your throat. So if you're not in full-blown panic mode, you can get a couple of good breaths while you're up there. And that's just so they can have a conversation as to what they're going to do next. Then they pull you back down to your tippy toes. You'll confess in your shame, so they strip you. Not to your gigantic 1600s underwear, which is pretty much a dress, an Ebenezer Scrooge outfit. They strip you to the skin, so you are fully naked in front of the entire town, while these guys are this close to your naked body, inspecting all your witch marks.
Yeah, I've got loads of them, so...
Yeah. Then they bring the witch pricker, who punctures them all, looking for one that doesn't bleed. Because the reckoning for this is the one that doesn't bleed is where you suckle the spawn of Satan. Now, this counts whether you're male or female.
Yeah, your third nipple.
Yeah, well, yeah, and because the spawn of Satan all have teeth, and that's why the skin's toughen up so it doesn't bleed. Again, these are the educated people in town.
I think I've met one of the stupid ones.
Yeah, they invariably find one that doesn't bleed because of the retractable needles, and then they pull you up to the 6 foot level again, so the whole crowd gets a good look at you while they allegedly discuss what they're going to do next. Then let me just grab something. They pull you back down so you're on your tippy toes again, because they've decided what they're going to do with you now. And they produce a little dagger with a blade as short as that.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And that goes here and then all the way down, including your bits. If it was a gentleman, they would divide that in half too, lengthwise.
Well, you got to have somewhere to put the onions and the ketchup and mustard, don't you?
At this point, apologies if I'm triggering.
You've just made my eyes water, Linda.
At this point, if your guts haven't fallen out with gravity, they put their hand inside, grab a hold, and walk back until something hits the floor. Then they pull you back up to the 6 foot level again, with your guts still hanging on the floor, and they leave you like that.
That actually sounds worse than HDQ.
If you are fit and healthy, you will bleed to death in 6 minutes. If, like Maggie McPherson, you're 84 years old, your trial is in January the 5th, there's a good chance it's going to clot, in which case that dirty, great big knot is going to take a full 17 minutes to kill you. They leave you where you are overnight and come back the following day, the same kind of time, just to make sure you're definitely dead. Cut you down, scoop you and your guts back up, and throw you back into the pond that they tested you in. They're all still there. The pond was never excavated before they built on it.
Wow. That'd be a good place to go ghost hunting, Joe.
Yes, it would be.
It's all industrial units, and none of them can understand how a 1970s prefab can be haunted.
It's always the ground.
There's got to be quite a lot. So, Joe, you were saying it wasn't. Sorry, hang on. Excuse me. You're saying it wasn't technically illegal to be a witch in France.
Well, it wasn't a listed extreme crime. You could be tried, but it was mostly if you've done something bad to somebody, or if they think you're possessed, then they'll take you to trial and try to get rid of whatever's possessing you. But there are other reasons why somebody wanted you dead. Oh my goodness, their hair is too long or something, and whatever, you'll be killed. But if you're a heretic, and you're that was the big thing here, was heresy. If you're a heretic and you practice witchcraft, well, you're a heretic and you're probably doing it for the devil anyway.
Most of the cases in Norwich, it was put down as heresy anyway, more so than witchcraft.
Right.
So,
see, in the States, the Salem witch trials.
I was about to ask you about that because you went to Salem some years back, didn't you?
Yeah, it was 2014. I went to a paranormal conference there.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Went to the soiree, and then that night we did some investigations in specific buildings, 3 different buildings. So we rotated, the groups rotated from one building to the next, and that was all very interesting. But of course, it's all fun and great and wonderful, but it's really hard to investigate when you're in a room with 40 people,
Yeah.
and everybody's walking around talking and everything. So it's really tough. That's more for fun, get to meet people and do that kind of stuff. And that's always great. But if you're going to do an investigation, go with a small group, or I do it by myself nowadays. So we just go. But as I was telling White Witch Linda a little while ago,
yeah, sorry, I had to go get a drink because it's just so hot.
Well, this is before the show. I'm related to.
If they want to sponsor me, they're more than welcome.
I'm related to Rebecca Nurse, one of the people that was killed in the Salem witch trials, and of course her family. The rest of them were done, that were accused. I'm related to them as well.
Now, if I remember rightly, weren't the two people originally accused of being witches were actually children, and it was another child that said yes, they are witches, or somewhere along that line. Or have I got that wrong?
Well, I know there were two girls, and they were playing a game with their caretaker, who was a black lady. And the girls were playing games. Who's your husband going to be? You know, this kind of thing, that kind of a game. And one of the fathers came in and caught them doing it. So then they said, oh, but she, the caretaker lady, she told us to do it. And she was teaching us how to do this. And of course, that became witchcraft. And then they started accusing people of witchcraft to try to get themselves out of trouble.
But somewhat the old myth of standing in front of the mirror and saying about Bloody Mary,
Right.
surely that stems slightly back from that as well, because originally, before it being in the mirror and being Bloody Mary, which they actually originally, that was written as a mocking of Mary, because she'd had 13 miscarriages, and it was actually Bloody Mary's children are dead, and then it just got shortened. But originally, then it was used as I think it was an apple seed underneath the tongue, sat in front of a mirror by candlelight to see who your future husband was going to be.
Correct.
And then,
Little
so that
like
kind of all stems back to the same sort of thing.
Slightly dangerous considering apple seeds contain cyanide.
Well, yeah.
You gotta have plenty of them, but yeah, exactly. But there's between 1692 and May, I guess, of 1693, there were 30 people accused of witchcraft in the Salem area. 19 of them were executed.
I believe 13 died in prison as well.
Right. Well, yeah. 19 were hanged in town, and one man, Giles Corey, he died being pressed to death. You know, they took his front door, they put a little small rock under his spine, kind of just below his shoulder blades, and they put his house door on top of him and started piling rocks on because he would not confess to being a witch.
That's particularly sharp, having the one between the shoulder blades too. That makes it quicker for you.
Well, yeah, it kind of does. And then they started piling rocks on until, of course, his back broke, and then he died. They just left him under there, and that was it.
See, the one Linda was just mentioning about all the guts and all that, to me, that comes across as a stolen pagan thing anyway. The blood eagle.
Right.
That's almost identical. Which
is also Norse and a few other things.
Well, see, this area is heavily influenced by the Norse. If you go back to 900 and something, when this pond that we use for the trials was first formed, where the Vikings are invading down the east coast, down like Cruden Bay, down past Aberdeen and all that kind of thing, a lot of them settled in this area, which is why I'm a short ass in this area. I'm 5'4", and there's a lot of very tall people here. The thing with the blood eagle, there's a lot of ancient historians give accounts of it, but these ancient historians are in monasteries, and these Norse are heathens.
The story changes immensely.
Yeah, I think the blood eagle was nothing like what is described. I think it's potentially just flaps of skin rather than the full take everything inside out and pan out. But the biggest, most recent theory on the whole blood eagle thing is that it only ever happened to about 5 people in the whole history of the Danes.
And if I remember rightly, wasn't it only for somebody that had real high status as well?
If you had seriously offended or insulted your Jarl. So it's tantamount to treason. If you had done treason against your Jarl, your Earl, your tribal king, then you would get that. But from what I can gather, there's only been like 5 people that's ever been put to death by it.
If I remember rightly as well, one of those was actually an English king.
Yes.
Alleged, because there's no actual proof that Ragnar Lothbrok existed.
No.
Likelihood is that he did. Ragnar Hairy Britches.
He's
Likelihood he did.
Yeah.
And after his death, the king that caused his death, it was allegedly done to him.
If you watch the Viking series,
I've watched all 8 series about 5 times.
I've only watched the first 5 series, but all of the characters in it did exist historically. The names are all perfectly matched.
Whether they were actual real people or not is a different matter.
Yeah, because in some of the sagas, once you get into the Orkney-Inga sagas, the Orkney folk, who technically aren't Norse but adopted themselves as Norse until 1940 whatever, when Scotland was given Orkney.
Yeah.
Some of their stuff, you get the old druidic beliefs coming in, which clashes with some of the Norse. So some characters are reinvented when you get the Orkney-Inga sagas joining the Norse sagas, and so on and so forth, because it's slightly different belief systems. But they all use the same medicine. And the reason there was such bad press put out about the Vikings, particularly in this area where a lot of them settled, it's documented that folk over here only had an annual bath, right? We know that.
Yeah.
The Vikings had a weekly bath. They washed their hair and brushed their hair every day.
And the English women were like nice.
Yeah, you've got your random scruffy, unwashed other half.
Yeah.
Who's about 5'8", 5'10", whatever. And this 6'6" blonde who doesn't stink of BO and is washed and hasn't got last week's chicken guts out of his hand.
Yeah.
Of course the women went off. There's all this, they were raping and pillaging. No, I think some of the women would have been queuing up in some places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly up here where they settled rather than came fighting. So.
Oh, Joe's actually just brought up something I was going to mention. There we go.
Oh, the witch window. Doors.
Yeah. They're all over. Well, not all over, but there's a lot of them up in New England, in the States.
Funny enough, I was about to mention that.
Coming in.
I don't know if it's this side of the planet, whether they tend to be used. I don't know if it's more of an American thing, that though. I can't say I've actually
heard of it in the UK.
No, I've not heard of it in Europe. I don't know if it is or not, but
if you think about it, it's at the perfect angle for the witch to be flying on her broom.
Yeah.
Well,
it says here they're typically set at a 45-degree angle to maximize light and ventilation on upper floors. And folklore suggests that they were designed to prevent witches from flying into homes.
Because they can't fly sideways.
Right, they'd slip off the broom.
Depends how good their suction is, I suppose.
But then again, with that window like that, then why aren't all the windows in the house set at that angle? If you've only got 1 or 2 on the upper floors, what good is it going to do?
Yeah.
Well, if you go back to medieval mindset, it's only the children that sleep upstairs because upstairs is where it's warmer. Right. So it protects the children.
Yeah, that would.
But then you can't put medieval times into America because there's no white men in America.
There was no medieval times in America. No.
Exactly.
Well,
there would have been the times, but there wouldn't have been no white guys.
Well, there were Vikings that were there visiting for a while.
Yeah.
Well before Christopher Columbus in the medieval times.
Because we mentioned this when we done our cryptids one a few weeks back. The first known reported Bigfoot sighting was by Leif Erikson in 946 when he travelled back from the Americas, claiming to have seen hairy man-type creatures that lived in the woods. So, what compared to the Bigfoot stories and that nowadays? That's I don't know. I've never known what to make of that.
But yeah, the medieval stuff and things like that, we just did not have it in the States.
Yeah.
You know, like it was in England and France and all over.
Yeah.
So all of our stuff is brought over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the religions were brought over,
it
brought all of that stuff with them, and there you go. Modified, changed up, and Americanized.
I've been doing a bit of research on some other bits and pieces, and some of the not so Dutch Mennonites seem to have sprung from the Brethren over here not long after the Reformation.
Right.
Very similar, seems to be a very similar faith to the Brethren. But the only difference between the Brethren and the Mennonites is the Brethren will have electric, but they will not have a TV or a computer. So, but you can have light and you can have cooking, but you can't have entertainment.
One that has interest, it kind of interests me, but to be honest, I've been way too lazy to ever research it, is Alice Nutter and all of that.
Why do I know that name? Is that Mother? That's not Mother Shipton.
No, I was going to mention Mother Shipton shortly, but that's what I decided.
English nobleman accused and hanged as a result of the Pendle witch hunt.
Witch trials.
Oh yeah, Pendle's the one with the spoiled brat kid that had her entire family killed.
Yeah.
I dug for 4 years on this story.
It hasn't, don't get me wrong, it has interested me, and I have tried researching it. By the time I get to the bottom of the page, or by the time I get to the bottom of the report, or 2 minutes into the TV episode about it, I just lose. I can't. It doesn't catch my attention.
The thing to remember is the guide, the Discovery of Witches guide thing, was written as entertainment, and he tells you that on the first page. Some of the stuff that he says happened in the trials did not happen at all. The top and bottom of it, because I'm very aware of time, top and bottom of it is the daughter of a family who's like 8 or 9 years old is in love with the boy on the next farm.
Yeah.
She thinks her family are stopping her from getting near the boy on the next farm, and she accuses them of witchcraft. Then, while one of the days she's going over to look longingly at the farm boy over the fence, she meets the peddler, and she asks the peddler if he's got a little something she can have. He says no. She swears at him, and he effectively seems to have an epileptic fit or a stroke.
Right.
She's accused of witchcraft. She then says it wasn't her doing, it was her mum's doing, because her mum was further down the lane behind her. No, she wasn't. Her mum was in the house. And then she accuses her sisters and the rest of her family. And effectively, long story short, the entirety of her family is wiped out, leaving just her. She's feeling vindicated. But what she doesn't realize is the neighbor boy was never interested in her. And later on, when she's in her 20s, she's involved in another witch trial. I don't think she's executed at this one either, but
Wasn't it rat poison she used?
Something along that line.
Rat poison in their porridge or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Something like that. It's very similar to the that plantation in America. Is it Magnolia? Where they use the oleander in the birthday cake?
Oleander,
yeah. So similar story
make you
to
an
that.
oleander cake.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
we were saying briefly about the Bellman of Scotland and the shocking cost of 30 shillings per execution.
That boy would have been minted.
I looked that up. In today's money, that works out about 10 grand per person.
Yeah.
So I think that's if I've used the right thing on it.
I know
But
£50
Matthew
£50
Hopkins-
isn't it? The only translation I know money wise is £50 in 1828 is equivalent to 7,500 nowadays.
Someone invent a time machine.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Are you saying about that, and we mentioned briefly about Matthew Hopkins?
Yeah.
When he was in Suffolk and he went to rid Ipswich town of witches, he charged them £1,000 in 1644.
Wow.
Jesus.
So I don't know if Joe's computer seems to be spot on. I don't know if you can quickly do the calculations for that, Joe.
Sorry, I was looking up a picture. What am I supposed to calculate?
See if you can find a thing that in 1644, what £1,000 nowadays would be. Because that is a lot. £1,000 in 1640. £1,000 nowadays is a lot of money. You know, if your TV breaks and go, yeah, it's going to cost you £1,000 to fix it, you go, sorry, I'll buy a new TV, it'll work out cheaper.
Currency converter 1640.
1644, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, £1,000. 0 shilling, 0 pence. 117,546 pounds.
Oh.
Yeah.
156 horses, 185 cows. Yeah.
But there is a lot of theory that Matthew Hopkins was actually killed off, actually accused of being a witch himself.
Hang on.
Or that's one theory, anyway.
I've done the same thing from the Bank of England website, and £1,000 in 204,000.
Yeah, mine's National Archives currency converter, 1270 to 2017.
Even so, at the lower rate.
Even at the lower one, it's ridiculous money.
Oh, and this is in 2017 is the answer. So you've got a few more years.
Yeah.
So the inflation rate that could potentially have doubled in that time. But yeah, briefly, last thing we could go on about is Mother Shipton. I know a tiny bit about her, but not much really. Witchcraft has interested me, but it's been more of a thing to, if I can't sleep, I'll put the laptop on and I'll have a listen to something. And I might have. What's this Joe's done?
Oh, it's just the witch house in Salem. That's an interesting museum.
Right. Okay, look at that witch house there. Hold on.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very common style of building for that time period.
Oh, is that what it is? Right.
Because you were charged, your rent or your purchase price was charged for the land. So quite often the bit that's on the ground is smaller and upstairs is bigger because you don't get charged for that.
That's right. You get charged for the lower, whatever touches the ground. That's the area you pay for. And they do the same thing up here in the city at Carcassonne. There's a couple of buildings that are kind of more original, and they're made out of stone. You've got a small area, it goes up, spreads out up above, and keeps going on. You know,
there's a famous one somewhere in the south of France where it's beside a little stone bridge, and the ground floor is effectively the size of a garden shed, and it's got 3 floors, and each one of them is bigger and bigger.
Like an upside down triangle.
Yeah.
I must admit though, it's not been the same without Ian here tonight.
Yeah,
because I've behaved when. But yeah, Mother Shipton. We'll close off with Mother Shipton. Hopefully, those that have been watching have enjoyed it.
She was one of the first fairy tale bedtime stories I ever heard of. Because when it's thunder and lightning, Mother Shipton's having a dance to celebrate the fact that they didn't trap her soul. And when it's snowing, she's making a bed. and things like that. Because my mum's from Yorkshire, so when I was little, anything that was a little bit weird, a little bit scary, oh, it's just Mother Shipton having a dance with some pit clogs on. That's your thunder and the snow.
Apparently, I didn't realise this, but apparently she was known as the Witch of York.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I've known the name Mother Shipton. I've heard it throughout the years.
Her cave, there's a Mother Shipton's cave.
That's where the picture is right there, Carl.
Oh, okay.
Which apparently used to be a really amazing, used to be a really amazing visitor site, really. And then a certain very short English magician bought it. And it basically went to rack and ruin. But the Mother Shipton's cave, there is heavy lime deposits, and there's consistently running water. And if you had gone to look at it in the 1960s and 70s when my mum first went, there are top hats, kid gloves, all sorts of things, teddy bears that have been hung up in the running water and are now petrified. But when Mr. Daniels bought it and she went back again after Mr. Daniels bought it, all of that was gone, and it was just the mouth of a cave with running water. It was...
If I remember rightly, because I'm a bit of a geek and I like Doctor Who, I was watching something about some of the old episodes of Doctor Who, and they did hire that Mother Shipton's cave briefly, or they was going to, for one of the episodes. And there's I can't remember what it is, but it's supposed to be something you're supposed to do when you go in there to get her blessing. And everyone was, oh, that's a load of rubbish. Didn't bother doing it, and it all went tits up. The actress got injured and all sorts of things. Yeah. So
one of the more famous stories about her is her escape from the trial. The trial was going on, and apparently she did some kind of incantation, and a giant goose came in and she flew away on the back of the giant goose. It's one version of the story. There's a few different versions of it.
That sounds very similar to Baba Yaga.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's why I'm saying how much of it is the population memory rather than history.
Yeah. So the reason I want to mention that as the last thing was she was supposedly lived with her mother in a cave. She was born in a cave, and she lived in a cave. They couldn't afford to buy a house or build a house or anything. I'm wondering if Mother Shipton is where some of the legends of Black Annis came from.
Not familiar with that.
That is possible, I guess. It is possible. I mean, the stories have similarities to them.
The different parts of the country, but I'm just wondering, there's like stories from America and over in France that would have come from England, or there's stories in England that would have come from Germany or Russia or things like that. So I'm just wondering if it was somebody who heard the story of Mother Shipton, and that's where the legend of Black Annis came from.
Totally possible.
And Black Annis is the next tattoo I'm aiming to get, actually, when I can afford it.
Nice. There's a picture of the cave with the stuff hanging on it. Mother Shipton's cave. Just put up.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I so wish I'd drive. I'd love to go and do an investigation there.
If they'd let you. You'd have to do it like on the sly, I think.
Yes.
I've been to many locations that don't allow them, and when there's been nobody around, I've got my digital recorder and things out, and
do the same thing. In fact, that Salem house we were just looking at a second ago, I walked in there and I had my phone recording, and I was on live on Facebook, and I had this thing recording, and I'm just walking around. I'm walking around the building, and I put the camera up like this, wandering around, and there's people in there. They say no photography, no videos, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm walking around with it going right here just on my chest, and nobody even questioned it. And I'm live in the place, having a good old time walking around.
I
See,
had one of the heritage.
in a way where I ride a motorbike, I could probably get around that because you can buy the cameras you attach to your helmet. So I could go. I could buy one of those and put it on and go. Oh no, I'm not filming anything. It's for insurance purposes for my bike.
Right.
But anyway,
right.
yeah. So you're saying, Linda.
I've had one of the heritage groups from Salem on my witches tour here last year. And the dude who was in charge was the one who booked it. I can't remember the name of the heritage group, but he was Jeffrey. I think it was Jeffrey. And they wanted to come basically because I advertise online and stuff. If you put in Witches Tour Scotland, it does come up. And I obviously don't take them all the way around Scotland. I just do my local area. But they were amazed at how many people we had killed in just here in Elgin compared
Is that
to
just
how
on
many
your
people.
tours?
Yeah. Yeah, we only do that if they don't tip.
Okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, because I mean, as you said, 19 executed, 13 died in jail. We executed 40. And then
Just in your town.
and when the last lady was being executed, a gentleman stood up to defend her and saying, look, you know, she's old. She's probably going to die tonight because of what you've already done to her. Just let her go. Well, while they were waiting for her to die, they pulled him out the audience and executed him as well.
Oh.
He was one of the ministers of the church that was running the trials. But because
she
he
can't be
defended
saving witches.
Yeah, that's it. And then 3 months later, the witch pricker was being executed for impersonating a man. The penalty was death. And because they had been the witch pricker and they were responsible for 25 of the 40 executions, they put her through the exact same thing. So that little industrial estate has at least 42 documented corpses underneath it.
Wow.
And that doesn't count the random drunk people who fell into the pond during the last 1,000 years of its history before it was filled in.
Yeah. Well, as I said a little while ago, it's definitely not been the same without Ian here.
No.
Yeah. So what's our next conversation? Any ideas? Thoughts?
I'm not sure.
I had a suggestion from Perry about like haunted airplanes, World War II sites, things like that.
I've got a couple of stories about that.
Because I mean, I can think of a couple off the top of my head without doing any research, and there's gonna be lots of stories out there with the amount of emotion involved during that time. There's gonna be some hangovers, residual energies, and potentially the odd interactive one hanging about somewhere.
Right. Last thing I will mention was interesting because obviously I had so many problems last week with my internet.
Yeah.
I've had to edit clips to put on there. Guys, if there is anyone watching that isn't subscribed, go and subscribe because we only need 8 more to get to the 100, which would come in really handy for us. And if you're subscribed, get somebody that isn't subscribed. But it was interesting that one of the clips I managed to narrow down actually had the EVP on it.
Yes, I remember looking at that. That was neat. Yeah, EVP from our own show.
I watched that back because I can't remember what it was. He was talking about something. I thought, oh, that'd be a good bit for a clip. And then suddenly I hear a male voice. It's definitely not jokes. He's got a very strong American accent.
Yep.
I've got a deep voice. You've obviously got a feminine voice. And Ian's got a Yorkshire accent. And the voice says Alison.
Yep. And I do agree that it sounds like it's come from my end as well, and there was nobody.
Yeah, that's what I believe. That's what Ian said in chat.
That's what Ian was saying. Yeah, I believe it too. Yeah, it had the same volume as Linda's.
Yeah,
it's right there. So,
You said obviously we tried to work it out. We tried to debunk it. Could it be somebody out on your street?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know you're in the military area in there, so there would be English around there. but from out on the street to
being that clear
from the computer to the street, you have 6 foot of my living room, then you get the window, then you have
you're very
10, 11 feet of garden before you get to the pavement. So they would have had to be in this kind of volume rather than
that would have shown up in the audio.
Yes.
And Allison doesn't show up in Shakespeare plays. So it wouldn't be like that.
Yeah. And I've only literally just noticed what Joe Check put, because obviously I got my glasses on. I've only just literally noticed what Joe's put as his name. I tried to be clever with my name there as well.
Yeah, I noticed that. I thought that was good. I was just going to go with Joe until I saw yours, and I said, yeah, I'll go with Preston Salem.
Well, I was because we was going to talk about this. I just had a real urge that after I'm going to go cook myself a curry and sit down and watch Warlock, because obviously, bless him, Julian Sands. You know, they found his body, luckily, but he's lost. And I just happened to be thinking about the film Warlock, because growing up, I'd heard that the word warlock, it was Ed Wood, the director, that came up with the word warlock. But other research I've shown is that warlock has been used for centuries anyway. It means oath breaker or something.
Right.
Or something like that. But I'd always heard the rumor that Ed Wood had come up with the word.
In the connotation that it was used as a male witch.
Yeah.
Instead of just a witch, like witches are really witches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've kept it. Right, we're just under the 2 hours, so we've done well. Well, actually, no, still over a bit under, because I had a few problems. I had to.
Well, but we were making the effort to try and keep it slightly shorter tonight, so we didn't put everybody to sleep.
I've got a few ideas I want to try, because I'm learning about the SEO on YouTube. I have no idea what it means, but I'm trying to do what it says to try and get the follows. But those that are watching, Colin, Perry, whoever happens to be watching, I know at least one of those on there is me, because I'm watching it on my TV. So if you've got any friends that are into this sort of stuff, get them to subscribe, because when we get to 100, then we can start using the community boards. And when we start using the community boards, it gets put out to more people.
My cat's coming to see what your cat's saying.
He wants to go for a bit of...
I think that's why she's reacting.
Yeah, and the last time I let him out, he was gone for 5 weeks. Oh, you finally decided to wake up, have you? Oh, come on then. Come on, say hello, quick hello before we go. Come on. Come on in. She forgot her cameo. Come on in. Oh, the trouble is, she didn't hear Ian's voice. That's why she didn't wake up. Did you? No. She's been.
I was going to say there's Madam, but there's Madam's ass.
Oh no, because I haven't had the chance. The amount of money it's going to cost to get him done, I can't afford it at the minute. I'm trying to clear my debts. The fact that he doesn't go out is all well and good, apart from the fact that he's got to the stage he's now starting to spray everything.
Yep.
So if he keeps doing it, he won't need a vet to have them chopped off, because I'll do them for him.
Yeah.
So, but guys, it's been absolutely fantastic. As Perry said, another fantastic, fascinating evening. Really appreciate everyone jumping in. I will edit this quickly and I'll chuck it through TikTok, see if we get a few views. A couple of our clips did go viral on there, though.
Cool.
I put a couple of 2-3 minute clips on there, and they went viral. Whether we'll get any subscribers or not, I have no idea. But guys, it's been fantastic. I've loved listening to the stories and the history Linda's come out with. I love my history, and that's the good thing about my eldest CJ. He loves history. We go to old castles and things like that on a regular basis. So, guys,
CJ's a good man.
He is.
CJ's a good
man. Well, not if you met him, you wouldn't say that.
I would, even if I met him, because I don't have to live there. I'll come back home after a while.
I don't have to live. Do you know what? For her next birthday, I am actually going on the internet and I'm printing off a sainthood and getting Heidi a sainthood for pointing up with them three, because I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
And today's my son's 22nd birthday, so
happy birthday!
Happy birthday, then.
Happy birthday for
very
me.
cool.
No,
So,
22 already.
Yeah, 22. I got him when he was 6, adopted him at 7, and now he's 22.
Christ. I remember you
it?
showing pictures and that of him when he was like tiny. But yeah, no, it's been absolutely brilliant tonight. Your brain has been brilliant tonight, Linda. It's been absolutely fantastic. The trouble is now I'm gonna be sat on my PS5 doing a bit of Minecraft or something like that just to unwind, and I'm gonna have my laptop on there listening to documentaries or podcasts for this. Joe, fantastic as always, buddy. Really appreciate you.
Good being here.
And really miss you, Ian. I know he's
yeah.
But our aim is getting better. Maybe we won't miss next time.
I feel sorry for him because he was going to be here, then they gave him the meeting, then they cancelled the meeting, and literally yesterday or the day before they put the meeting back on again. Yeah. So, but anyway, like guys.
Some others that I know is the yo-yo management system.
God, I remember them days. Right, guys. Thanks for a fantastic evening. I've got a major high at the moment from talking about this, which is why I love doing this, because we all enjoy doing this anyway. But I'm sat here most of the time just talking to myself or the dog or telling the cat to shut up. And it's good to talk to people that are interested in similar things to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I've learned loads tonight. So, and it actually makes me have to do research when I can't be bothered most of the time. So, guys, thank you very much.
Well, if you get stuck, give us a shout. I can give you some research tips.
I know how to do it. I'll think, would I rather sit here just chilling out music and drinking coffee, or do I want to actually do some work? So, and music usually wins. And because the weather's been warm, I've been in my garden most of the time lately. But wish your boy happy birthday for us, Joe.
Will do.
And what we doing? Haunted? I can't remember what you said we're doing next week.
Aircraft, haunted aircraft,
aircraft and World War II bits and bobs, or war bits and bobs.
Yeah, war bits and bobs. That expands it.
Yeah.
Right, that's brilliant then. Right, so we're literally about 5 minutes under the 2 hours, so we've cut it shorter this week.
No, you're not drinking that. Sorry, my cat's trying to steal my iron blue.
But guys, thank you for a fascinating evening. It's been great fun. Those that have been watching, I know Colin has been watching, Perry's been watching. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, Kat, come on.
She's like in the iron blue.
I thought it was whiskey, actually, but never mind.
Nah.
Guys, have a good evening, and thank you so much.
Everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.